Yeah, and he gets that kind of like big smile on his face, and he's like, "Your praise does me honor, Arkady. I will attempt to do the same in the future."
Don't be too grateful. I am leaving you here in capital with assassins possibly at your door. What else must we deal with then?
I'm sorry to interrupt. May I get a glass of wine while I listen in?
Yeah, and I think that like it's the first time we like you guys have been talking for maybe like an hour, right?
Yeah.
And like you like look over like, oh shit, he's still here, right? There's that moment of like, oh, okay, and probably maybe it's a good joke, and there's a joke about hospitality in there. But yeah, Stannis probably summons one of the serving girls that is walking by and calls for wine or ale or whatever you guys want. Because it functions basically the embassy functions as a fully operational, self-contained unit. Can cook your own food, have your own wine, drinks, own rooms, that kind of stuff. So yeah, is there anything else that you ask him, Arkady?
I don't think so. I mean, I checked up on the state of the Emperor, which is continuing question marks.
Yeah.
Got confirmed that Joffrey is taking control of the situation as expected.
Yeah, that doesn't come as too much of a surprise.
No, Lord, no. And he's picked a bunch of friends who would, make really good support if he needed, say, all of Altdorf to suddenly rally behind him.
Yeah, seems like that.
So I don't think I'm forgetting anything, but feel free for anybody to shout if something slipped my mind.
Yeah, because again, this will probably be information relayed to anybody. So, but barring that, I think that the rest of the debrief continues without too much incident after you gather all that information.
I really want to make sure that Kree gets to see somebody.
Yes, yeah, I think that probably like when you guys start getting into more, now that you realize Kree is still here, as the more mundane topics begin to arise, like we need to deal with this specifically, and like there are scrolls being unfolded, like this is a treaty that they wanted me to sign, and all that other disgusting diplomatic stuff that we don't need to see. Kree, you're taken off by a lovely young woman by the name of Abigail, and she's got kind of like the reddish hair, pale skin. You've seen a couple of Kislev people like this, and this seems to be a common theme: paler skin because they don't get out in the sun much. Red or brown or blonde hair, some raven haired occasionally, kind of varies. But she comes and grabs you, and you guys begin talking about your thing, which we'll get to in a second. But let's go over to Morella. So Morella, you travel off to the palace, right? And you have to there you go. Yeah, Ice Tan. There you go. You travel off to the palace, and you're here to meet basically one of the courtiers that exist here to see what you can do about ranging for a debrief. So when you arrive, you obviously you produce your seal. They recognize you, new scars and all, and they decide they give you access through the gates, at least into like the public areas, and you get met by someone, and he comes over, and his hands are folded kind of inside of his robes, and he says, "Greetings, my lady. How may I be of assistance?" Marilla?
You were talking to me. Alright. Yes. Totally zoned out like that last little bit.
It's fine. There's no problem.
Because I thought you were still on Petrol or
nope.
Kree, and I was like, alright.
Nope. Talking to you. Sorry. It took a while.
No, it's okay. My apologies.
Yes, so you arrived and the courtier greet you. He probably introduced himself as Jack.
And she simply just nods and probably politely bows, and she's like, I request an audience with the Emperor. It is of most importance.
Yeah, and I think without missing the beat, he says, yes, my lady. It is terrible that I must inform you of this, but the Emperor is not taking audiences at this time. Although you can meet with some of the council that is performing his function in his downtime.
And she kind of like, just kind of takes that in, and she's like, very well, like, when is the earliest that the council is available for?
Yeah, and I think he says, one moment, let me confer with some of my colleagues. And he kind of trots off, and you can see him go back in a door, and you're kind of just sitting in, like, the Great Hall area, just, like, looking around. And then eventually, Jack comes back out, and he trots over to you, and he says, I have given the council your name, and they said that they will be able to see you today if they move some things around. And he kind of, like, he you know, like, gets kind of a confused look on his face, like he ate something sour, and he says, they stated that whatever mission you were on was of great importance, and so they will be accommodating to that. Perhaps just before dinner time.
Very well. Thank you.
It is my pleasure, my lady. And he kind of gives you another polite bow.
Yeah, she bows in respect as well, and then I guess heads off to find the others to inform them that
okay. So
dinner time is coming.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you're walking over to the White Swan, you kind of, you know, maybe you're just like walking through the streets, and you got your sword and your shield, or your spear and your shield.
Yep.
And somebody comes up to you on the street. It's a young woman, probably about 16 or so. And she looks a bit disheveled. She looks a bit out of place because you're in basically the rich district, right?
Yep.
She's wearing, you know, pants and a shirt that she's worn for perhaps 3 weeks straight. And she comes up to you and she says, my lady, I must ask, could you spare a copper?
Yeah, and she looks at this girl, and then she simply just nods.
Yeah, roll a perception check for me.
Sure. Alright.
Okay, yeah, totally.
Not bad.
So you notice she has a patch sewn on her shoulder, right? And it's really faded and worn off and kind of torn in one place. But you notice the symbol of the city of Nuln on her shoulder.
Yeah, so like a confused look kind of comes across my face as like I'm pulling out a couple gold pieces, and I'm like, "You're from Nuln, are you not?"
And with her head down, you know, not looking at you, but like holding her hands out in proffer, and she's like, "Yes, my lady. I noticed your shield and thought perhaps there would be some charity from someone from my hometown."
Tell me, what is your name, and how did you get here, if you're from Nuln?
My name is Talia, my lady, and I walked, same as anyone I'd expect.
Recently, or have you been here for a long time?
She kind of like, she glances up, like, briefly, and she says, I have only been here a few days.
And she nods at this, because, like, surely if she's only been here a few days, Morella would piece together that, like, maybe at some point they would have at least, like, maybe seen if she took main roads and things like that. Because no way you could outbeat a fucking horse.
Right. She also,
unless she,
you know, she might have left before you. Before
Yeah.
you left, right?
Yeah. But it's like, how long does it take? And then time and things like that. So, like, only a few days, you have to assume a lot. But yeah, she's just skeptical a little bit.
Yeah. Totally.
And she just hands over 2 gold pieces,
Mm-hmm.
and then smiles, and then like kind of like, places it in her hand and like closes her hand. She's like, "Well, hopefully this helps, little one."
Yeah, and she nods and she gets like bows like real low to the ground. She says, "Yes, me and my brother will be very grateful. Thank you, my lady. Glory be to Count Appleton." And she, as soon as like you disengage, she runs just breakneck speed, like down a street and ducks into an alleyway, presumably to go spend her newfound money on food.
Yeah.
Or perhaps new clothes. Who knows?
Who knows? So, so I kind of like, just like, kind of stand there for a bit, and like I give a smile, and then I just continue walking my way.
Yeah, totally. And I think that that's pretty much all the interaction that occurs with you in your brief little foray. Ow. So let's move over to...
Where's Farron? Because I'm curious about what he's doing.
That's good. That's who I was going to say anyway. Farron, are you there? Are you prepared?
I am, yes.
Okay.
I, as I ever do, this is my job for Mr. Arcadi, I get back in touch with the underground contacts.
You go back to informing people how fired they are. Right, Petrov?
I mean, it's one of his responsibilities, but it's not the only one.
Yeah, you're all very fired. Congratulations.
Mine involves
so
knives more than verbal warnings.
So yeah, you eventually are able to, snake your way through the old haunts, right? Through the hot and cold trails of what exists here. Roll just for funsies. Roll an investigation check to see what you can find along your journey of locating your old contacts.
Because we know I'm great at investigating.
I mean, you are a smart man.
You're not bad. 13 is good. Yeah, so I think that initially the trail is pretty cold. They've clearly had to move around a few times. But eventually you pick up on it again, and I think that as you're kind of traveling through, you figure this out before you actually get to see it in person, but it appears that someone new is in charge here, because they've picked a couple of locations that would have not been picked previously. What was the name of the head of the Thieves Guild here before, or what was his, what did they call him or her?
It was
Little Jeffrey.
What did they call them, Farron?
Johnny No-Nos.
Johnny No-Nos. So Johnny No-Nos had a very specific set of rules. There were certain parts of the city that were not allowed to work in or not allowed to create a hideout in. And I think that at some point during the course of your investigation in trying to find them again, you find yourself in a part of town that Johnny No-Nos would not have allowed people to go into. And maybe that's a bit curious to you. And
because
as you
got a bit much security, or
yeah, so it's less easy to hide in, and is also closer to the areas, because the deal is generally the Town's Guard and the Knight's Griffin and all the other knightly orders that exist in town won't really mess with the Thieves Guild because they don't want to start a war, right? As long as the Thieves Guild kind of sticks to where they're supposed to be, right? Like the slums, maybe the mid-city, the market area. Yeah. As long as they don't come into the rich and hoity-toity, the people that pay them their sovereigns, right? They don't really care. And as long as they don't kill one of their own, right? As long as they don't start murdering people who are knights or Town's Guardmen, they won't really care. For the and this is for the traditional good guy Thieves Guild, right? The good guy Thieves Guild doesn't kill people, or if one of their people does kill somebody, they'll give them up, right? They'd be like, we don't want to be associated with that guy. That's not what we do. Or, that was a contract we didn't authorize. And, like, he'll end up hogtied outside the guard barracks the next morning, right? And that's kind of like the deal that the Thieves Guild and the City Guard have. But you probably find that they are resting. Your search leads you to a manor that exists in Hightown, which is over here, in this area, right over here. Let's go ahead and put a text in there. Yeah, don't you? Isn't it great? Let's make it 22. Thieves Manor. Why? That's not 22. That's a little too big, I think.
Yeah. The previous guild would never be in this part of town.
Yeah, no, they would never be in this area of town. And it leads you to a manor, and maybe you're like scoping it out, like you're leaning up against a wall and, being inconspicuous as you do. And as you're leaning up against the wall and kind of like observing this manor, you hear a voice behind you. And it says, "What you doing, love?" And it's Mel, who's obviously been tracking you this whole time.
Of course you'd be here, Mel. What a pleasant surprise as always.
Yeah, and just crunch as she bites into an apple. And you see her kind of chew on it a little bit, and her face kind of sours. And she like spits it out. She's like, "Y'all have some sour apples in this part of the empire, don't you?"
Aye, they're much sweeter in Kislev.
Yeah, she kind of chuckles, and she kind of like does the head nod to the manor, and she's like, "We're going to go in and see your friends."
Aye, I guess you could say that.
Yeah, her eyebrow kind of raises when you don't call them friends.
I've been more of freelance than actually in their fold.
Yeah, again, you like the go on stare.
Everyone knows that I work for Arkady, and so they recognize my skills, but don't indulge me in everything.
She kind of chuckles, and she says, "Yeah, that sounds like Nonos." But she kind of like looks around. She's like, "This doesn't look like Nonos."
My thoughts exactly. There's no way that he would ever be in this part of town, and that just makes me all the more worried.
Yeah, and I think she just kind of like she mimics your like positioning on the wall. She like leans up against it, and just kind of got her hands like slid down on like the loops of her belt, or on her belt. It's probably not belt loops. And she's like, "Well, how long are we gonna wait?"
I guess no time like the present.
Yeah, and she's like, "Good. I was hoping you'd say that." And she like kind of pushes her with her back up off the wall and begins kind of just at a slow pace walking down the side path like by the river. She begins to whistle and like kick rocks into the river as she's walking towards the manor.
Yeah, I kind of give her kind of a half dubious look, but just proceeds to...
Do you stick your tongue out at her with her back turned?
Yes, definitely.
So we see Farron give her a face as she's walking by.
She threw knives at me. I think I'm allowed to.
She did throw knives at you. That's a true story.
Did you deserve it?
He
No,
agreed to it. That's close enough.
Because I'd rather be able to dodge a knife to the face than get one surprise in my butt.
It's true. It's true. So the two of you begin, walking towards the manor, and as you get to the door, there's not a whole lot of light you can see from inside. There's no flickering fireplace burning, or there's maybe a couple candles. But the sun is quite high, and the natural light kind of illuminates inside. And as you walk by one of the windows, and it's pretty big. The manor's pretty big, probably maybe a mid-level lord's home or manor. But it also doesn't, as you do, right? It doesn't look inhabited, which is kind of the calling card of, this is an okay place to be because nobody will suspect that anybody lives here. When indeed it could be the headquarters of the Thieves Guild. So when you get to the door, Mel kind of turns around and looks at you, and she's like, "So what? Is there some secret special knock or something?"
Well, there was certainly a sort of that. Because, I knock on the door.
Yeah, so you rap on the door frame a couple times. And I think that actually roll an insight check for me.
Thanks for picking all the rows.
Yeah, it's no problem. Oh, you nailed
wow.
it though. Nailed it. Not 19 and 20. So Mel is standing there, and she, for all intents and purposes, looks casual. But you notice her hands are right by her dagger hilts, and she seems to have that kind of cold composure of a coiled snake, right? She is clearly at ease on the outside, but ready for trouble should it occur.
Yeah.
Because think about her position, right? That she heads up a thieves guild in another city. Clearly she knew who No Nose was, probably because they've had correspondence. But if No Nose doesn't exist anymore, or if he changes ways, she's worried that, she may be in trouble here, right? It would be nothing to capture her and ransom her back to her guild for copious amounts of gold, right? And then, Farron, maybe it dawns on you that, oh shit, we're actually supposed to be protecting her till she gets to that's our mission. And so maybe there's that moment of maybe that little passing fleeting.
Are you sure you want to come in here?
Yeah, or that passing fleeting maybe I should have brought somebody else too, right? Just that momentary I really hope this goes okay. And right when that occurs, the door kind of creaks open, and you can see an old kind of hunched over man walking with a stick, and he says, "Yes, what is it? Who is that?" And you see him peering squinted out at you. He obviously can't see very well.
Yes, the albatrosses should be flying by this season.
Yeah, I think he's "What? What did you say? Come closer, I can't see you, boy."
Yeah, I take a step forward, still on guard, but the albatross should be flying by this season.
He kind of you can see him he rubs his ear, and he's "The cross is high this season. What?"
The albatross should be flying this season.
Yeah, and I think that as you say that, the door opens abruptly, widely, and there's a woman standing there with short cropped, kind of jet black hair. She opens the door and she's "Oh, shove off, old man. Go, I'll take care of this." And she's darker complexioned. Roll me a history check. I gotta remember to start having more rolls occur during RP portions, so you guys have a chance to use inspiration and stuff. Yeah, you can't. She's not from around here. Her skin is much darker complexion, like maybe a deep olive, and she talks with an interesting accent. She's like, "What can I do for ya?"
Perhaps you'll hear me this time.
Yes, I heard you the first time.
Then you know why I'm here.
Can't say that I do.
No, I was supposed to meet a friend here, Johnny.
Yeah, and she's like, "Oh, then why didn't you say so? Come on in." And she opens the door a little bit wider, and you guys kind of walk into this common room area, and Mel again is, got her, she's like just kind of looking around, but with the practice eye of like, okay, where could somebody shoot me with an arrow from here?
Yeah.
Where is the blow dart going to come from if I walk into here? This room. And the woman who refuses to introduce herself walks over. She says, "Oh, have a seat there."
Aye.
Yeah, so you and Mel position yourself on like, it's kind of like a couch with some like cushions that are a bit ratty. Like probably like a plume of dust kind of comes off when you guys plop down. Mel is sitting on like the edge of the cushion, very like proper with her hands in her lap and her feet, together. And the woman walks off and she's like, "I'll be with you in a moment." And you're kind of left in the sound of the old creaky manor, and it doesn't sound like a whole lot is going on. There's not a whole lot of motion or anything like that. And after a few minutes, she comes back and she's got like a small tea set, and it's got 3 cups on it. And she comes over and she holds the pot and she kind of tips over the tea into the 3 different cups. And you can see there was tea leaves in the bottom, and they begin to, dissolve into the hot water. And she kind of takes hers and kind of, stirs it around with her finger and licks her finger afterwards. She takes a small sip, kind of like closes an eye a little bit, like it's too hot or too sour or too bitter or something. And she's like, can't ever get used to this stuff. It's not like half back home.
Hi, and where is home?
She's like, well, wouldn't you like to know?
That's why I ask. Because I give a cheeky grin.
Yeah, and she smiles back and she says, "Well, if you must know, it's Talea."
Hi. This is where I quickly look at the world's map. Oh, yes. Aye, that's a fair way from here.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Mediterranean of the setting, right? And she's like, "Aye, yes, it is." Again, another sip. And a few moments later, you hear like a stomp, and then a clack, and then a stomp, clack, stomp, clack, stomp, clack. Of someone coming down the stairs, and kind of walking around the corner, and kind of coming into view is someone who you barely recognize as Johnny No-Nose. So they call Johnny No-Nose Johnny No-Nose because he has no nose. Cut off.
Really, I didn't know that.
Cut off in a duel, but something else is different about Johnny. He is walking, and he appears to be missing a foot. And kind of like he's walking with like a crutch, and that was obviously the clack you kept hearing, like stomp, clack, stomp, clack, stomp, clack. And as he kind of approaches, he's kind of using most of his weight to hold on to the crutch. And you can see when he enters vision, Mel becomes visibly more relaxed. when it's not some other, Lord of the Thieves Guild she has to meet. And he comes in, he's like, "Oh, you're right, bugger. What you doing back in these parts?"
I've of course come to see you, old fart. Am I not allowed to do that?
Poppycock. I didn't say you were allowed to do anything. Much less if I told you you'd listen.
You know me too well.
And his eyes glance to your companion, and his expression softens. He's like, "Abby, my dear, how goes it?" And she stands up and walks over and embraces him. And she says, "Well, Johnny, that's a right spot with your foot there, isn't it?" And he's like, he kind of like waves her off, and he's like, "Oh, it's no problem. Lost it due to some kind of disease. It'll be fine." And as she kind of like settles back on the couch, he sits down and kind of like plops down and in like a large like cushioned chair and kind of like hands his crutch to the woman that's sitting there. And he says, "Well, my boy, what can I do you for?"
First, you can tell me why on earth you're in this part of town, Johnny.
He's like, "What you mean, this part of town? This is my house."
Eh?
Nani?
Are you not running anymore?
He's like, "Don't you know, Farron, I'm a right proper noble now." And he gives you like a wink.
Still doesn't explain much, Johnny.
Yeah, and you see he kind of like rests back, and he's like, "Let me spin you a yarn, Farron." And he launches into a story about what's been going on at the Thieves Guild, which essentially is, remember way back when, when there was assassins in the city. Well, no one really stopped them from doing what they needed to do. Mostly because the people that would have are either dead or other right now.
Sure.
So, yeah, rip. So he begins to explain a large underground style war that was waged in the city, that spanned, like an entire month's time, all the way up to and involving like different aspects of the knightly orders and the guards and stuff. And he says how essentially the guild had to be disbanded, and how it doesn't rightly exist in its proper form anymore. There's still contacts and stuff throughout the city, but the city essentially became freelance, because of the losses and casualties that they had. But in addition, there was just like there was a lot less room to maneuver while the Assassin's Guild and the guards and the knightly orders were all kind of duking it out, with the thieves kind of caught in the middle, right? And so yeah, it's one of those things where like they still operate, but not on a scale that would really allow them to be called a guild anymore.
Yeah.
And that's he explains that's how he lost his foot too. He took a poison arrow in the foot, and he actually probably says the story. He's probably like, "Aye, then I had to chop it off myself with my hatchet. I didn't want that poison spreading to me heart."
A wise move, Johnny. You've not gone senile yet.
Ho ho ho! There are some that would think so, my boy. And then he kind of looks over at Mel and he says, "So, Mel, I'm assuming you know about this and you came to take over my turf. Well, I can say I'll still fight you for it, just like I said last time." Actually, he says Abby, not Mel, by the way. And she says, she's like, no, not this time, Nonos. Perhaps when I swing through again, but No, this time I was just here to see an old friend. And he kind of chuckles and he says, well, not that I wouldn't ask for the help, you know. And she kind of like nods solemnly a little bit, almost in sympathy, from what you can tell, Farron. And she's like, I'll send word back to Robert. I'll see what we can do. It is not right seeing you in this state. And you can tell that something transpires between them non-verbally, and yeah, they kind of like trail off and joke and laugh. Is there anything specific you ask him about, Farron? While you have the opportunity?
Well, question one was what on earth is happening in the city, which he's done dutifully. Now, next question would be about any rumours about up north.
Yeah, and I think he says he's probably like, bad bit of business that lost some men to it. They seem to have grown a heart in the past few months, or at least they wanted more fighting, one or the other. Perhaps they saw better times once they make it to the war-torn landscape that is up north, but not anything in particular, unless you have something specific you want to know.
Not really. It's just a few of my current companions have dealings up there, and so I'll have to head there soon.
Yeah, and he just says, my condolences, mate.
You and me both.
And he kind of like looks at Abby, and he says, and what about you, Abby? Are you going with them? And she just kind of like, she tisks, and she says, well, I've been told I have to. And he gives, like, there's a moment where he pauses, and then he starts laughing uproariously. Ha 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 ha! Still under the thumb of the wine lady, I see. And she kind of flushes, and you can tell it's a bit with anger, and she kind of like shoots him a glance, and he just laughs at it again. And there's a good like maybe 15-20 seconds of him laughing and her just shooting him nasty glances. And he says, oh yes, it's good, it's okay, I can relate. I've been under the thumb quite a few times myself, but just remember, you chose to take that turf, Abby. And she just like again just shoots him like a nasty look. Do you have any other questions for him?
Not really. I think I've got what I needed, and I've been social, so perhaps while more of social talking, but then I'd be on my way, I guess.
Yeah, but like the other important thing is they could use somebody to help them rally, right? That's obviously a thing that he is like. He jokingly said he would fight Abby for it, but also it seems like he would appreciate the help in rallying the troops again. Perhaps, incorporating again as opposed to working mostly freelance like they are now. So perhaps that appears as an opportunity for you.
Yeah.
Or someone you know in the future.
A couple of days, so.
Okay, great. Good. Seems great.
Sorry, didn't mean to.
It's okay.
Forgot to talk to myself.
Cool. So you guys have a pleasant conversation and move on. Let's move on to real quickly. Hannibal, what were you doing again? I'm sorry. You wanted to go to the market and find some stuff, right?
Yeah, I wanted to get some information about what's going on up north and go to potentially a herbalist or potion shop.
Yeah, totally. So the market location is still in the same place it was before, over here in the market district. The bodies have all been cleaned up, don't worry. From, 2 months ago or however long you guys were here. So when you arrive, you can see that, again, it is the hawkers and street fair is a little bit muted in its presence as opposed to when you were here previously. There's far less stands. In fact, Traveling merchants, it's totally possible that they packed up all their things and followed the war party north, right? That would be a thing that they would do because not only they could provide their services, but they could also make money on the side as well, like selling to the towns they come across. And they have the added bonus of a lot of protection, right? There's literally an entire army with them, so
no need to hire fucking guards.
Right, yeah, they can save money with guards at the nominal cost of, like, you know, if it's a blacksmith repairing a shield every now and then or something like that. But there are people who are here statically that have to kind of, you know, still do their job.
Yeah, targeting those assholes.
Right, yeah, exactly. So as you approach, you can tell there's a couple people selling food and a couple people selling perhaps some like trinkets and baubles and all that other fun stuff.
What kind of baubles?
Lots of cool little like jewelry things. Definitely nothing like you saw in Nuln though. I think that having been in Nuln for such a long time now and maybe perusing the markets, you know, during downtime, the craftsmanship that exists other places seems meager compared to Nuln.
This is shit.
Yeah, there's probably, like, you know, some wood carvings and some maybe small, like, animal, you know, statue things and very little, like, silver and gold work. Like, if it is, it's, like, very, very, like, little, like, maybe a gold inlaid bracelet. But nothing, certainly, that would match what the Nuln tinkerers and jewel crafters and trinket and bauble makers are doing. Because that's the kind of industrial city of the setting. So, yeah, that's probably a good idea, actually, Jackson. Good call. As you arrive, you walk up to kind of an older woman who's got, like, you can see she's got, like, some potions out and some herbs, and as she stands up to greet you, that's probably a good place to take our break for the day. So, let's be back at 10 after the hour.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Cool.
All right.
And we'll finish Altdorf and hopefully travel to Middenheim. It'll be awesome.
Oh god, yeah.
Okay, stream, we're going to take a little break. We'll be back in just a few minutes. If you're watching on YouTube, thanks. Awesome. Great. Just stay tuned.